Some clients dissociate during session, especially in an EMDR session. So I wanted to just address that and just let you know what I do with that. So if there's dissociation in an EMDR session, I typically would pause and do some other work. How would we know that you're dissociating? Oftentimes, people early on trying to reprocess a memory all of a sudden become very tired. This is a very common dissociative kind of quality. I'm tired all of a sudden when they weren't tired before. So it's not like, oh, you showed up tired because you didn't sleep well or whatever, but all of a sudden you're very tired. Sometimes it shows up as people just saying, I don't know, my mind just went blank. I don't know where I'm at, you know. Sometimes people get distracted, and this can be another form of dissociation. I think the last one that's a little bit trickier to assess, but there's what I would just label as just resistance to reprocessing. I don't really remember that, or there's nothing there, or it's not that bad. So this may not be dissociation, but sometimes it is. And so that's why it's a little bit trickier to assess. So if any of these things show up, and I do some assessing with you or collaboratively, and we determine, yeah, this is dissociation in a session, in a reprocessing session, we could stop the work, we could keep going. However, it usually doesn't work out great. So what I do is, I revert to an IFS session, an internal family system session, and we actually do a IFS session on your dissociative part. This is very, 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 very helpful. And so if you already know that you tend to dissociate, maybe you've done EMDR before, or maybe you just have tendencies to kind of get really tired or avoid in some ways some difficult memories or emotions, this is a good thing for you to bring up in session. So before we start reprocessing, we already know you have a tendency to dissociate, and so we're going to actually target that. What an IFS session will do is two things. One, it'll give us some verbiage to communicate with the dissociative part in and out of session that'll help that dissociation to calm down. The dissociation is there to help you, right? It's usually developed when we're very, very young and we don't really have any other options available to us. It's very common in trauma, very common in chronic abuse of children, because as children, we don't have a lot of options, we don't have a lot of power, and in abusive situations, we don't have adequate support. And so, what do we have? Well, I can check out. I can just check out, right, and not be here. It also can come up pretty regularly in acute trauma. So I'm not going to go into all this. I think sometimes when we repeat the trauma, it can be really triggering. But anyways, in acute trauma situations, we may also need to check out mentally, because we don't have an option of leaving the situation. And so when you go to reprocess these memories, our system wants to check out or dissociate in order to protect us, in order to help us. What an IFS session will do is that it'll help us really uncover that, really understand it, not just logically and what I just explained, but really feel it internally. This develops more internal cohesion, more compassion, so that when that dissociative part shows up, we can pause and say, hey, I know you. I appreciate what you're trying to do for me. And this will kind of have that dissociation chill out a little bit, and then we can move forward. It also helps us to do an IFS session with dissociation because it'll point us straight to who is activating that dissociation, which can really help us when we go to reprocess using EMDR. Sometimes we don't know why we dissociate. Maybe we have an inkling or an idea, but an IFS session will make it very, very clear what is triggering this specific type of dissociation. And then we could even use some of those memories or that age frame or that situation to then do some reprocessing with our EMDR work. Some other things that I do for people who dissociate is I usually do shorter sets of EMDR so that we're not doing longer sets. And the longer that you're doing the bilateral stimulation, the longer you have to let yourself just kind of check out. So we tend to do shorter sets. That's not super maybe important to you as a client, but I just wanted to let you know that sometimes people do dissociate. I know what it looks like. I've had lots of clients dissociate. I know how to help in different forms, in and out of session with IFS and with EMDR. Please bring your questions or concerns to session as well if you have any. Thanks.